أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. So alhamdulillah for those people that were connected to the events that was on my Facebook page. The translation of the verses were included in there, plus two pictures, and I'll be inshallah hopefully referring to those during the lesson. For those that didn't have that or have not received the verses were from Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 125 to 128, I think. And inshallah, we'll continue from where we left off last week, which was where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had described the arrival of the Prophet Abraham, Sayyidina Ibrahim, arriving in Mecca, in the holy city of Mecca, and then planning to rebuild the Kaaba. And that's where we finished. And we'll start with the story that I finished with last week, which was a bit of a personal story, but I think it's still worth recalling that because it relates quite closely to the verse. But I'll read the verse first. And for those people that I want to refer to those notes, the translation that I included in the comments on the event page were from Dr. Abdul, but any translation would suffice. And as I said, Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 124 to 128. Allah says, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمَنًا وَاتَّخِذُوا مِنْ مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى. And remember, we made the house, a place of assembly. That's the translation that Yusuf Ali uses. And the translation that Dr. Abdul Halim uses, he says, we made the house a resort and a sanctuary. Now, this first word, mathaba, is quite an important word for understanding the whole story. So it might be that I'll reflect on this one word, a little bit more in depth. First of all, if you look at the definition or the translation, it is a place or a time at which one or something appears or recurs, something which happens regularly, and a place or a time that's associated with the appearance of something. As many of us are doing now homeschooling, I just mentioned that during our homeschooling with Idris, what's your favorite season? Because we're doing seasons, and we did winter, spring, which has just come in, and he says, I like winter because that's when Santa Claus comes. And I just thought alhamdulillah, that's interesting. But what he'd associated was that this character appears at a particular time. So the word yuthawibun or mathaba is the appearance of something at a particular time or a place. And as a result of this appearing at a particular time or place, the word mathaba then becomes the word which is translated here as a refuge. What does it mean? It means a place where one seeks a refuge. And I'll give you an example of why this is probably one of the best examples is a case of two brothers. Now, these two brothers lived 400 miles apart, and one of them was going through some marital difficulties, and the other brother, these two brothers, they didn't talk a great deal. They're one of these families that just sort of acknowledge each other, but they don't go into deep feelings. So the brother that was going through some difficulties, he literally just walked out of the house. He left the house and didn't come back for a few hours. His wife started to get worried about him, And then, as was her wont, she then phoned the other brother who lived, like I say, 400 miles away. Says, "Oh, he's walked out on me. He's done this, and I bet he's going to turn up with you. Is he there yet? Is he there?" Kind of accusing the one brother of providing some kind of refuge for her husband. And the brother says, "He's not here. He's not come. He's not contacted me. He's not phoned me. He's not. He's not. But if he turns up, I'll tell him that you're looking for him." And then, subhanAllah, what happened? He then left his house and he went to the graveyard. Lo and behold, he went to the grave of his mother. And who does he find sitting by the grave of his mother? Is his brother. Just went up to his brother and says, "You all right? Yeah. Everything okay? Yeah. Do you want to come home? Maybe later. All right. See you later." And he went home. And this was the conversation between two brothers. What I'm trying to point out here is this word mathaba is used as a place or a time where something appears. So he knew his brother had just disappeared from the house. Where's he going to find him? Let me go to my mother's grave. I'll find him there. I'll find him there. So here, the mathaba in this sense is the place where you know that my brother, this is what the brother, I know my brother is going to turn up here because this is his mathaba. This is his place of refuge. The place when he's got a difficulty, he goes and visits his mum, even though it's 400 miles away. So that's what's meant by one of the meanings of mathaba. So mathaba here is a place of refuge or a place that you go to. As I said, the original meaning is a time or a place where something appears. And now it means a place where you go to, or the extension of that meaning is a place that you go to regularly to find that sense of peace, or find that sense of tranquility, a resort, a refuge, which is what's translated here. Now, another meaning of that, extending from the word from thawaba, is actually the word manner or a mode. So yathubuna, that they do this verb of thawaba, to turn or to find this refuge, is also they adopt a conduct, they adopt a manner. And that's why we have the word thobe in Arabic. The word thobe actually means clothes. Why is it how can the word thobe be connected to the word mathaba? And how is it connected to the story that I've just told? Is that this manner, this way of being, is connected to going to this place on a regular basis. So your conduct, or the conduct of this one brother, is that whenever he's got problems, you want to know where you'll find him? Go to his mother's grave. You'll find him there. If he disappears, don't worry, I'll find him. Go to his mother's grave. That's his mother. This is his method, his mode. It's his clothing, the clothes that he clothes himself in when he's in a state of difficulty. So the word thobe is connected to that. The meaning of manner or conduct. So here, and then also we have the word thawab. How is thawab connected to this word? Thawab is a word that you use for reward. How is it your reward? It's your thawab because it's something that you regularly adopt as your manner, and as a result it has a consequence. And if you regularly do this, you regularly go to work, then you should regularly expect to be paid. So if you regularly adopt a manner, a mode of conduct, you should receive as a result of that your recompense. So that's why the word thawab is connected to this word. So let's go back to the verb for the verse. If and when جعلنا البيت, we made this house, and the whole story that we've been talking about, we've made this house as a mathaba. So this mathaba is the place, just like it was to that man who was going through marital difficulties. It's his turning point, his place of refuge. وجعلنا البيت مثابة, and therefore it's the way of conduct. So when you take this mathaba, the house, as your place of directing, then it will lead you to have a particular type of conduct. How does that relate to me and you? Every single day we turn to that house and we say, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than everything else. I'm now turning to this thing. I'm now facing this with my heart and turning to that as a symbol of what Sayyidina Ibrahim represented, which was a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the house then becomes my conduct, it becomes my cloth, my thobe, and it will be my thawab. So this is why every single day we are connected to the house by this turning to say Allahu Akbar. So that's why وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ. Now one of the meanings of mathaba also is what would you use of jadaba. Jadaba is what you'd use for magnetism. It pulls. So it's the magnet that pulls the whole nation. So alhamdulillah, I noticed that for example, my good friend from Nairobi, Akil, I'm not sure if he's in Mombasa, may Allah reward him. And I've got friends from here in Glasgow, alhamdulillah, my family in Nottingham. We're all in different places. But there's one thing that pulls us together is that when, in our case, Maghrib comes in an hour or so, I'm going to turn to that place which is like a magnet which pulls me. And likewise, Akil in Mombasa or Nairobi, wherever he is, he'll do the same thing when the prayer comes in there. And all of my brothers here, my sisters here, my family back in Nottingham, they all turn to this as if it's a magnet. And it's interesting because it's described in the description of the creation of the earth as the earth was created from the place where the Kaaba is. And the earth was the solid earth came over the gases, dahaha, became flattened or rolled out from the Kaaba. So in other words, the Kaaba is the pole, the qutb in Arabic, the polar center of the world, although the magnetic pole is the North Pole. However, the spiritual pole is the Bait. And of that Bait, that house which is described here, that black stone is the one which is placed as the center. And when we greet that black stone, as we said in a previous class, we turn to the black stone and we say, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. In the name of Allah, Allah is greater. Allahumma imanan bika. We believe in you. Tasdiqan bi kitabika. And we have faith in your book. تصديقا بكتاب ووفاء لعهدك, and we want to fulfill the contract, which goes back to the contract that we said with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he said, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? We said, Bala shahidna. Indeed, we bear witness to this. It's said in hadith, which is related by Hakim, that this contract was then placed in the black stone. So when you go to the black stone, it's as if you're reaffirming that contract. When you reaffirm that contract, you say Allah, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Imanan bika, wa tasdiqan bi kitabika, wa wafa'an bi ahdik, and fulfilling al-ahad, the contract with you. And that fulfilling of the contract is what you do when you do Hajj. And as I said last week, if you don't want to do that, khalas, you may as well die in whatever religion you like. If you do this, then you'll follow the way of Ibrahim and the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you don't, tamutu Yahudiyan or Nasranian, you may as well die. You can follow Christianity or Judaism, because that's gone away from the way of Sayyidina Ibrahim, which is represented by this black stone and the magnetism of the bait, which is described here, وَإِجْعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ. And the story that I gave last week was from my uncle when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Alhamdulillah, he said, I'm so pleased. May Allah be praised. I'm going to the Haram. I'm going to that black stone. I'm going to that Kaaba. And alhamdulillah, that's where he died. Now, that process of yearning for that place is placed in people. And I know that was what was placed in me when I was very young. I was 16 and I didn't know anything about anything at that time. But alhamdulillah, Allah put something in my heart to say, go to Mecca. And alhamdulillah, on my 17th birthday, I set off to Mecca alone. And alhamdulillah, that was the beginning of many things. Alhamdulillah. Likewise, it's said in hadith that whenever a prophet was rejected by his people, he used to come to Mecca, which is why there's 20,000 prophets. And we're not talking about Rusul, messengers, we're talking about prophets. And of course, we know from a hadith that there's 124,000 prophets who were sent to the world. And of those, 20,000 of them are buried within the precinct of the Haram, around the holy house. So this is when it says يُثَوِّبُونَ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ. The meaning of إِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً, it means that they all are pulled towards it from every direction. وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ, that's the first part of the verse. وَأَمَنًا, and it will be a place of sanctuary. Place of sanctuary, what does place of sanctuary mean? Amana here is related to the word iman, faith. So aman and iman are very closely connected in that if you have faith, it brings about this sense of aman, tranquility and peace and safety and security. Because when tribulations come, and we talked about tribulations in detail last week, when the tribulation comes, if you have iman, you will have this aman, this tranquility, which will take you through it. And I remember, alhamdulillah, I've had the good fortune to be placed under arrest in a number of different situations, in Algeria, in Jordan, in Arabia, but the best place that I experienced being arrested was in Yemen. And alhamdulillah, one of the reasons was when we were taken to the prison, to the detention center, the place, prison. Alhamdulillah, they said, you can't put these people in this prison, it's too dirty for them. So they really treated us like alhamdulillah, wonderful treatment. And eventually they put us up in a hotel and says, look, this is not how you treat guests. But one of the governor of the prison, he came out and he gave this discourse. And one of the things he said to us, he says, al-imanu yamani. And he says that this is a play on the words that is apparently related to a hadith. Al-imanu yaman, that the iman, faith, is connected to the country of Yemen. And one of the reasons Yemen is to the place is Wallahu alam, the meaning of this is that it is a place of tranquility or security. It wasn't a place of security, otherwise we wouldn't have been arrested. But what it did give me was this sense of real tranquility in this man's company, because although he represented an authority and unfortunately had to arrest us, he didn't, because of his faith, and alhamdulillah, inshallah, our faith, there was this bond which brought about a great deal of, and you can see not many people talk so fondly about the governor of the prison that they were being detained in. Well, anyway, that's my story, alhamdulillah. So here, that amana, and I want you to think about that concept of aman, because it appears several times in these verses. طيب, I'll come back to that. The next part of it, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take you the station of Abraham as a place of prayer. Or that's Yusuf Ali's translation, and Dr. Abdul says, take the spot where Abraham stood as your place of prayer. Now, what's this Maqam Ibrahim? And again, for those people that looked on the event page, I put a photograph of the Maqam of Ibrahim, which is the footprint of the Prophet Abraham. Now, the Maqam of Ibrahim is well known, if that's what's being referred. So he said, I'll meet you at the Maqam, or go to the Maqam, or do Salah at the Maqam. This is what's usually understood. But here, it's interesting because the commentators on the verse, some of them said, actually, al-masjid kulluhu maqam Ibrahim. What's meant by wattakhadha maqam Ibrahim musalla, it actually means the whole of the place of Ibrahim, the whole of the Haram, as a place of that you do your prayer. So take the maqam of Ibrahim as a place of prayer. And that's why those people that say, mistakenly understand that when you've done your tawaf, when you've done your circumambulation around the holy house of Mecca, you are supposed to do 2 rak'ahs, 2 prayer cycles of supererogatory nafil salah, and some people call it salah to maqam Ibrahim. Actually, it's not the salah to maqam Ibrahim. This is a misnomer. If you look at what Sayyidina Abdul ibn Umar said, he calls it salah to tawaf. And the companions used to go to this young man Abdul ibn Umar and ask him, how do you make hajj? And he's a man that made hajj 60 times. And so older companions would ask him. So when we take from the rites of the hajj, mostly we take it from Abdullah ibn Umar, even though he was one of the youngest of the companions. And he called it Salat al-Tawaf, and he said it should be done anywhere in the sacred precinct of Mecca, not directly behind the maqam. And this is important for those people when the what we call the zahma takes place, the crowding, because it's a difficult place to pray and people are walking. And actually, the sunnah is just to pray somewhere within the maqam, within the place. So this is one of the meanings of maqam Ibrahim. There's another meaning of the maqam of Ibrahim being the haram of Al-Haram kulluhu maqam Ibrahim. The whole of the sacred area of the city of Mecca and its surroundings is called the maqam of Ibrahim. That's what's referred to. And the third is that it's this stone that was that I posted this picture of, and many of you will know what the picture looks like. If you don't, you can always Google it afterwards. Right, that maqam, I want to tell a couple of stories which are quite important. The first one is that how did it become such an important point, and when did it get incorporated into the rite, so to speak? When did the prayer this became a place where we prayed? And it actually took place when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had conquered Mecca, and they were walking around the Kaaba. And Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, and I'm going to relate directly to what he said. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, وَافَقْتَ اللَّهِ فِي ثَلَاثٍ. He says, and this is something about the status of the great companion Umar ibn Khattab. He said, there are three occasions where Allah I don't know, think how to translate this word. Confirmed, I think would be the best. Allah confirmed on three occasions what I was thinking. And this is one of the status of the great companion Umar ibn Khattab, that three times he thought something or said something, and then Allah revealed a verse to confirm that what he just said was correct. So there's three verses of Quran which are related to the statements of Umar ibn Khattab, or he was what we call the sabab of the nuzul, the reason or the point at which the verse was revealed. And one of them, so he goes on to explain what they were. أو وافقني ربي في ثلاث قلت يا رسول الله لو اتخذت مقام إبراهيم مصلى. So as they were walking past this point, this stone which contains the footprint of the Prophet Ibrahim, or Prophet Abraham, he says, shouldn't we take this maqam as a place to pray? Shouldn't we pray here, Ya Rasulullah? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, which is the one that we've just said. وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمَنًا وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى. And so take the maqam of Ibrahim as a place of prayer, which confirms the statement of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. And just for completion, I'll mention the other two verses, which were when فأنزل الله عز وجل آية الحجاب. So there was an occasion where the Prophet Muhammad Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says that when in your own home many people come to visit you, some of them good and some of them bad, some of them يدخل عليك البر والفاجر, the good people and the bad people. ولو أمرت أمهات المؤمنين بالحجاب, wouldn't it be appropriate that the women of your household were completely veiled? فأنزل الله عز وجل آية الحجاب. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down a verse related to this. And then another occasion where his own wife, his own daughter, was the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidatuna Hafsa, had fallen into disagreement, and there was a problem related to that. Muhammad, he said to to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who in effect is his son-in-law, he says, if you divorce her, Allah will give you somebody better. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defends, عَسَىٰ رَبُّ أَن يَطَلَقْكُنَّ أَن يُبَدِّلْهُ أَزْوَاجًا خَيْرًا مِنْكُنَّ. So then Allah sent down a verse which confirmed the words of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. So this maqam of Ibrahim, the stone that I showed the picture of, is related to the story of this verse of this being referred to here. Right? What is this stone? Now there's two narrations of what this maqam, why the footprint of Sayyidina Ibrahim is embedded in there. And I'm going to tell the least well documented. It's found in some of the tafasir. It's found in Al-Azraqi, for those people that think it's a completely made up story. Among the tafsirs that it's mentioned is Al-Baghawi, which is the hadith, which is the tafsir which is recommended by Imam al-Haddad that he preferred. So it's authentic in that it's documented well. The story was that when Sayyidina Ibrahim left Mecca, as we mentioned in 2 or 3 weeks ago, he went and he returned to his homeland in the Sham, in Syria, in the Holy Land, and periodically would visit his son. His wife, Sayyidatuna Hajar, died. And so on occasion, after she died, he came, and Alhamdulillah, as we mentioned, that Sayyidina Ismail was kind of adopted by the local people, and when his mother died, he married into a local tribe. Sayyidina Ibrahim came and visited, and Sayyidina Ismail, according to the narration, was out hunting. And he came to the house. She didn't know who this man was. He greeted, and he says, do you know where Ismail is? And he says, oh, Ismail, he's out hunting. So Sayyidina Ibrahim asked, do you have any diafa? Do you have any opportunity to receive guests? She says, no, we don't take guests. We have nothing. We're poor. He doesn't provide for me. He's out hunting, and when he comes home, and she started to complain and complain. And he just said, okay, then just pass a message that an old man came, and that he should change the what's that? What do you call it in English? The doorstep. The doorstep, the step of the door. The threshold of the door, the step that you put the block there to enter before you enter into the house. He says, I think you should tell him. An old man came, just tell him he's advised to change the doorstep. So he came back, and his wife started to complain, and she says, oh, by the way, there's an old man came. She says, oh, describe me. Describe. So she described Sayyidina Ibrahim, and of course he knew immediately it was his father. He says, and did he leave any message for me? And she said, yeah, he said, you should change the doorstep. He says, and with that, he divorced her. Because what he was referring to this was her response was not one which was conducive to the way of Sayyidina Ibrahim, the way of Sayyidina. So he divorced his wife. He returned, Sayyidina Ibrahim returned a few years later, and alhamdulillah, this time he'd married the wife, his second wife was from the tribe of Jurham, who we referred to last week, who, alhamdulillah, gave him a child, Nabit, or who we talked about at length last week. So he came the second time. And the narration which is mentioned by Al-Azraqi says he came and he asked, went to the house. He says, do you know where Ismail is? He says, oh, he's out hunting. But would you like to come in? She saw this man and immediately asked, before he asked, do you have diafa? Do you have an opportunity? Can you receive? She invited him in. She provided milk and meat. And the Sayyidina Ibrahim then made a long dua for the meat and for the milk, and alhamdulillah, she was very, very happy. And then the narration of Al-Azraqi says he left, and as he left, she said, tell your husband that he should hold firm to the doorstep. So she was very happy, and he left her. Then Sayyidina Ismail came back from hunting. Oh, Afwan, so pardon me. When he asked us to tell me about your life, she says, oh, we are so happy. We have plenty. We have whatever he brings, we're happy with. We have food, we have this. So she was very full of gratitude. So that was actually an important part which I missed. So anyway, he left. So Ismail came back from his hunting mission, came to his wife and says, she said, oh, we had a visitor who's this wonderful, beautiful man, beautiful. And then said Ismail was very happy. So describe him to me. So she described his father. He says, oh, and what did he do? He says, oh, he asked can he stay? I said, no, you have to stay for food. I gave him meat. I gave him milk. And he made dua, and then Ismail said, oh, if only we had bread, if only we had wheat, excuse me, he would have made supplication, he would have made dua, and the bread of Makkah would have been blessed. However, because of the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim, that the meat of Makkah, whatever meat you eat, inshallah, would be blessed by this dua. Whenever you drink milk, it would be blessed by this dua. And I will perhaps one day tell you the story about my first trip to McDonald's in Makkah, but that's another story. Then So what happened? He said he looked very tired. So I asked him whether he would like me to massage his head. And he said, please. So I asked him to place his feet on a step. Um, and then I would, or to sit and place his feet on the step. So he was raised, he sat on one, uh, uh, one rock, and he put his feet on another rock, and then I massaged his head. And then according to this narration, he asked, "Can I see the rock?" And there, imprinted in the rock, were the footprints of Sayyidina Ibrahim. This is one narration, and Allah knows best. However, the more well-known and the more authenticated one is that when Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail built the Kaaba, it was built, and we'll show a picture of how it was built. Um, the rocks were brought from different parts of the world by the angels. And one of these rocks, as they started to build, um, he could no longer reach the higher levels. So Ibrahim, the angel Jibril, brought one particular rock, which, according to the narration, was from the garden. He placed this there, and Sayyidina Ibrahim stood on it, and out of awe, the rock. The only way to describe it is like a sponge cake. If you put your hands into a sponge cake just after it comes from the oven, your handprints will be permanently embedded into that. And that's what happened. The awe that this rock felt with the feet of Sayyidina Ismail Ibrahim. And Allah knows best. So that's the understanding of what's meant by the verse, وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take from the maqam of Ibrahim, take maqam of Ibrahim as a place of a prayer. وَأَحِدْنَا إِلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَعِيلَ أَن تَطْهِرَ بيتي للطائفين والعاكفين وركع السجود. And the verse then continues, and I'll read the translation. We commanded Abraham and Ishmael, purify my house for those who walk around it, those who stay there, and those who bow and prostrate themselves in worship. Now, I'm just going to focus on one or two Arabic words, because alhamdulillah, you have the English translation there. Like I said, I put those notes in the comments, or are related to the thing, and you can look them up anyway. The word wa'ahidna, and we have commanded, he uses here. Ahad means is a contract, and it goes back to what I was talking about previously. It also refers to the verse that we studied last week or the week before, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that they will be blessed except those that do dhulm, who are wrongdoers or oppressive in their behavior. And we mentioned that oppressive behavior doesn't mean just being a tyrannical ruler, because there are people who will be raised as faranin, as pharaohs on the day of judgment, when they had nobody they were responsible except their wife and child. So there are people who are considered tyrants because they did what we call in Arabic dhulm, wrongdoing, oppression. So then the verse, لا ينال أهد الظالمين, the contract will not benefit those wrongdoers, meaning the contract being connected to Sayyidina Ibrahim. So of his children, of his offspring, those offspring who practice dhulm, who practice tyranny, whether they're given a position of authority and then are tyrannical or wrongdoers, or they just have families and they oppress their families, they will not succeed. So here, this contract is again connected to the Sayyidina Ibrahim and Ismail. Ahidna, and we have commanded, or we have contracted the Prophet Ibrahim wa Ismail, and tahira baiti, or tahira, to cleanse or to purify. The Yusuf Ali uses the word sanctify, and Dr. Abdul Halim uses the word purify. But tahira means to cleanse, or to cure. They're both connected. Now, the story of this is is again connected to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he comes to purify it, by meaning Ibrahim comes to build it, to purify it, means to prepare it for the people that are going to do tawaf around it. The people are going to circumambulate it, and the people are going to take residency there. Al-Aqifin, and those people that are going to uh, do sujood, prostrate, that's me and you, because we're here in Glasgow, I can't see the Kaaba, but I turn to it and Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and I greet it. And I will go into sajda, and I will go into ruku from here. This refers to the people, to me and to you, and those people are not directly connected to. So this process is connected to the establishment of that Kaaba by the Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail. Now, the word that I wanted or the part of the word I wanted to focus on is with tahira, and they were commanded to cleanse baytiya, my house. And the word my is very, very important. And what is this my? Everything belongs to Allah. Lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Everything on this earth belongs to Him, and everything in the heavens belongs to Him. So why do some things get attached to Him or associated with Him? Why does He say my house, my prophet, my book? Because these things have what we call idafa ilayhi takhsisan wa tafdilan. They are attached or attributed to Him. Although everything belongs, they are attributed specifically to Him to make their status high and to make them single them out for a particular reason. Now, just this particular house has been singled out. Now, I want to quote from Imam al-Qushayri, who was one of the great spiritual masters, so to speak, and also a commentator on the Quran. Now, I want you to put this in context of the rest of the verb. This house has been purified for those that do circumambulate, those that pray, those that supplicate, those that visit. And all of those people get certain rewards, and this is mentioned in the hadith. However, the people that just sit and look at it will be rewarded for simply sitting and looking at it. And I don't know the strength of this hadith, but there was a hadith that I remember hearing from my teacher, and those people in London may know him, Shaykh Babikr Ahmed. Shaykh Babikr was a wonderful, beautiful man, and still is a wonderful, beautiful man. And I remember him sitting and talking. We're sitting and talking. He says, "There's three things that you will be rewarded just for looking at, just looking at." And he's relating it from his teacher, Shaykh Karibullah, and with his sanad. He says three things. One of them is the Kaaba, and we know this from authenticated hadith. Just looking at it, you get reward. The second is your parents. Just looking at your parents, you'll be rewarded. And the third is just looking at the mushaf, the letters of the Quran. Now, these three things, why? Because all of these things are things you should have a sense of awe. When you look at your parents, if you look at your parents, this is my mum. She gave birth to me. This is my dad. He is my father. If you look with that, you will be rewarded just by looking at them. Likewise, the mushaf. These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala written down in front of me. And of course, the hadith about the looking at the Kaaba is well known, that there are 120 rahmas descended, 60 for the people that do Torah, etc., etc. You get so many of them for just looking at the Kaaba. Why? Because the Kaaba is connected to our relationship. We just said it was mathabatan linnas. It was the place of refuge. Just as that brother that I mentioned, you want to find him when he's got a problem? Go to his mother's grave. You'll find him. The Kaaba, that's the place you find people who are seeking refuge. So it's a place where you turn to. It's this magnet, as we says, the kutub, the kutub al-ruhani, the polar. The spiritual pole, as we have the magnetic north pole where all magnets point to, we have the spiritual pole which all the spiritual people point to. So it's spiritual, but it's physical. It was related to building rock by rock. These are stones that were placed. So it's creation, but at the same time here, Baytiya, it means my house. So this idafa means it's connected, it's divine. Divine in the sense that I use divine with a small d, meaning divine in that it's connected to the divine with a capital D, meaning it's connected, it's associated, it's attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let me quote from what I said, Al-Qushayri, he says, فَمَنْ نَظَرَ إِلَى الْبَيْتِ, whoever looks at the house, بِأَيْنِ الْخِلْقَةِ, with the eye of creation, meaning that this thing was created, which it was, with the eye of creation, with your physical eye, in fossil, he will be cut off. وَمَنْ نَظَرَ إِلَيْهِ بِأَيْنِ الْإِضَافَةِ, whoever looks at that Kaaba with the eye of idafa, and idafa is a association or attributing, and it's a grammatical term which is used here, meaning that it's attributed or it's attached to, or the pronoun is associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what, if you look at it with that connection, wasal, wattasal, he would have arrived and he will be connected. What does that mean? He would have arrived, then he's really gone to Makkah. He's really, really gone to Makkah. Why? Because he's looking at the Kaaba not as a stone building with his eye, which has been, but he's looking at it with his heart, recognizing that this thing is associated with the divine. Wasal, wattasal, and then by that connection, his heart will be connected to the divine, and therefore everything else will flow from that. And as a result, he will find aman. What did I say aman meant? Security, tranquility, safety. Go back to the verses that I said, with جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ, we've made this as a refuge or a house of assembly or resort and a sanctuary. The sanctuary here, al-aman, is that feeling. So you will find tranquility if you look with that eye. If you don't, you'll see a building. And there are so many people that have different experiences around the Kaaba. And I'm sorry, but I get kind of moved, because alhamdulillah, I was blessed to live there for some time, and blessed also to take a number of groups over the last 32, how many years did I first go? 40 years ago. So alhamdulillah, over the last 40 years, I've had many opportunities to take different groups. One of those groups was a group of blind people, and I really was I didn't realize some of the things I just almost took for granted. And there's a hadith, whoever looks at the Kaaba when he looks at the Kaaba for the first time, the heavens open. And I was teaching this hadith, and then I realized they're all blind. Well, not all, a large number of the people in the class were blind. And I just wasn't sure what it meant. So that disturbed me for a couple of weeks before teaching the class and actually physically taking them. Then when I got there, I took those that were sighted and I says, remember the hadith I taught you, just keep your eyes down and remember that and then focus. And then they lifted their eyes, and then we made the dua for when you see the Kaaba for the first time. And then alhamdulillah, then I went to the blind group and I brought them forward, because I just wanted to just get my head around how I was going to do it. And then I realized they had their eyes, and when I relayed the hadith and they looked up and I could see, of course I'm facing them, not facing the Kaaba, so my back is at this point to the Kaaba. Why? Because I'm concerned about my blind guests and the people that I'm looking after. And I looked at them and I realized they could see something that I couldn't see. They had no physical eyes. Their physical sight was all, but every single one of them, was one or two people in particular, I just looked at them and I saw the emotion on their face, and I will never forget that experience. Another case was and alhamdulillah, that's enough stories. So this is when it says looking at the Kaaba, you only benefit from looking at the Kaaba if you understand with your heart the meaning of this, in and tahira baytiya, and they purified my house for those groups, للطائفين والعاكفين وركع السجود. So alhamdulillah, that's the point of that particular verse. Let's move on, inshallah. I wanted to cover the whole section of this part of the Quran. because we never know whether we're going to return to it. And this will probably be the last class in this format before the month of Ramadan. Then the verse continues. وإذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا وارزق أهله من الثمرات من آمن منهم بالله واليوم الآخر. And again, I'll go back to the translation. Using Muhammad Abdul Halim's, Abraham said, my Lord, make this land secure. And again, the word that he uses, aman. Aman is related to all the things that I've been trying to say, is that sense of tranquility, that sense of peace, that sense of faith. So it is a place of security, it is a place of safety, but more important, excuse me, it's a place of emotional security, of emotional tranquility. And again, I said I wasn't going to tell any more stories, but I think I need to tell one more story. And I don't. This brother I'm going to tell you the story about, I don't even know what his name is. His name for me was Uncle. Um, just I was living in America, and again, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to take a group of people, and the group originated from the UK. So I flew to London, in effect picked up my group, so to speak, gave them a one quick dars, set off, flew to Mecca, and I kind of got to know them on the way. Um, and it was probably one of the most difficult groups I've ever had experience of. Um, um, it was really tough. And among the things that were tough for me on a personal level was that it didn't seem many people cared about anybody. And they cared probably the least about me because they saw me as the imam. What little did they know is that I paid the same price that everybody else did. I wasn't appointed as I paid. I just wanted to go for Hajj, and this brother is a beautiful brother that took us, and he used to say, "Pay what you can." So some years I paid nothing, other years I paid in full. This year I paid in full, alhamdulillah. But I asked them, please, I'm going into the hotel. Please look after my things. Alhamdulillah, I went in, arranged all the rooms, did everything. Came out of the hotel to get my bags, hoped that somebody had taken it off the bus. They hadn't. Nobody took my things off the bus. Therefore, I had two pieces of cloth and alhamdulillah, my passport. I didn't have a penny, and I had no clothes, and I had nothing. So I had to perform my Hajj, everything just through 2 weeks with not one penny. And alhamdulillah, I got through it. But there was this one brother who came and he gave me the shirt. Um, Obviously, he gave me the shirt. He says, brother, please, would you take this shirt? And I just looked in his face and I thought, you are such a beautiful man. And I treasured that shirt for many, many years. I never wore it because it would never fit me, but he had this something special about him. Alhamdulillah, that group, my Hajj continued with this difficulties after difficulty after, and alhamdulillah, I was tested and tested and tested. There was one point where I was I was tested to the point where I'd not slept for 36 hours. And the only time I wasn't busy was when I was washing one sheet of cloth, which had to be when everyone was asleep, because obviously I'd be naked otherwise, just with one. Anyway, alhamdulillah. And one day after 36 hours of no sleep, I came back and I was completely finished. I walked into the room, and this uncle who gave me the shirt, he was sitting there waiting for me. And he just says, please, could you take me for tawaf? And I thought, 36 hours I've been running around for this group that causing me so many difficulties. Everyone's got an issue. And this brother, he just smart, the way he looked at me, I just thought, there's something about this guy. I says, of course. I couldn't move. He walked me to the haram, we did tawaf, and I still remember the tranquility and the beauty and the energy that I felt as a result of being with this man. And he was also treated like a dog by everybody else in the group. That was another side point. Later, I found out the reason why people treated him so badly was because he was well known for drinking and doing lots of not so wholesome. And I didn't know him. I didn't know anybody in that group, but I loved him. Anyway, I didn't know about him at the time. Went back to America. And as I left for America, I promised him, Uncle, I'm coming to see you. And he says, please do. went back to America. The next trip I came to the UK 6 months later. I went to the Hajj tour operator and I says, I need to see Uncle. He died. And I knew then what had happened, that he was a state, that he knew something. And that sense, that spirituality, that state that he was in energized me and got me through the most difficult couple of weeks, two of the most difficult couple of weeks I ever experienced. Run it, and it was his strength. And then when people talked about, oh, he wasn't very popular because he did this and he was, I thought, alhamdulillah, Allah took him in the best of states. And to this day, that man, may Allah bless him and give him the highest of the Jannah. Why am I saying this? It explains what the mathabata means, and it also means what aman means. Physically, I could not have done tawaf. I could not have gone to do the tawaf. But Allah put that aman, that tranquility in my heart because of the intention and the purity of this man that I was with. And that's what's meant by this whole secret, this whole story. وَعَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ Ibrahim. And we have contracted, we have committed, we have commanded Ibrahim to purify this house. Why? For Uncle. And as a result of Ibrahim establishing this, the ta'ifin, those people that go around, he wanted to make tawaf. He took me with him, and alhamdulillah, I was blessed by this company. With call Ibrahim, so إذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا, make this place a place of aman, make this place for this. عفوا واجعل هذا البلد آمنا ورزق أهله من الثمرات, and provide for its people من الثمرات. What's this thamarat? It goes back to the story that we talked about when Sayyidina Ibrahim came the first time, and he says, رب إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم. I have left my children, some of my offspring in this barren desert. غير ذي زرع, that has no farming ability, no agriculture. There's nothing there. So here it is, the dua, وَرَزُقُ أَهْلُهُ min al-thamarat. Now, I'm going to relate a story which is found in many of the tafsir, and Allah knows best its validity. It's related the same. When Ibrahim made this dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered it. How did he answer it? By commanding Jibril to take one portion of the land from around the river Jordan and place it in the mountains above Mecca. And this town, if you've been to the town of Ta'if, you will know that Ta'if stands out as being a completely different entity. And only I would not have believed the story. And it's mentioned in the tafsir, but still I probably would have doubted it because the story sounds so magnificent and so amazing that, and it almost, with my scientific and Western logical, non-spiritual misunderstandings of the world, I wouldn't have. However, if you've been to Taif and you see the beauty of this place, you'll see, and the fruit, and Taif provides fruit for everybody in that area, you will know that perhaps this is valid. And Allah does provide for the people of Makkah from Taif, and Allah knows best of the validity of the story. This is a beautiful story anyway. What is well known, what is pure, and what we have no doubt about, is that later in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد. I swear not by this city. Why has this city got such name? وأنت يا محمد حل بهذا البلد. It's because you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, live in this city. How does that connect to this? The thamarat here, the fruit, is the fruit that comes from this dua, is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it continues, the dua continues. عفوا إذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا وارزق أهله من الثمرات من آمن منهم بالله واليوم الآخر قال ومن كفر فأمتعه قليلا ثم اضطره إلى عذاب النار وبئس المصير. Then he goes on to talk about those who do disbelieve, and God said, those who disbelieve, I will grant them enjoyment for a short while. Hey, you can enjoy Makkah, you can enjoy this dunya, you can enjoy whatever you wish. You can enjoy your status of the petrodollars that you can enjoy for as much, but it's a limited time. The real blessing of this place will last forever. However, the wealth that built those massive towers and those massive things and that hideous clock, um, um, the tower above the Kaaba, for me, it's just mind-boggling. Why would we want to tower over the Kaaba? And despite all of that, the Kaaba still is there as the magnet. Those people that associate with the dunya, the worldly matters of the Hilton Towers and the Sheraton Tower and the of those nonsense around the Kaaba, leave them. That's fine. They'll have the time. وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. And then it continues the dua, O Lord, make us Muslims, bowing to thy will. O Lord, make us devoted to you as Muhammad Abdul Rahim, and make our descendants into a community devoted to you. Show us how to worship. وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا. Oh Allah, accept from إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا واجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك وأرنا مناسكنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. So he raised this Kaaba, and of course the Kaaba is slightly different, and I put this picture on the group, and I just point to it now just to show that it is slightly different to the way it is in those days. There are two pillars there. You can see the pillars that are being shown are the black stone pillar, which is here, and the Yemeni pillar, which is there. Now the Yemeni and black stone pillars are the only pillars that were pillars at the time of the Prophet Ibrahim. And this arch here at the end had no fixed pillar. The Kaaba now descends and then cuts across here, and there is this arch there which marks where this point is. So you see this Kaaba looks very different to the Kaaba as it is now. Why? Because this part is a wall. So you can see that the Qawa'id, the pillars or the foundation, are slightly different, and this hopefully you can look at on Facebook later if you didn't access it, and the measurements are on there, drawn to the best of that I could do, which show those measurements. I'll read briefly how Sayyidina Ibrahim built this. وَقَدْ كَانَ بَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ الْكَعْبَةَ. Ibrahim built it مِنْ خَمْسَةِ جِبَالٍ, from rocks which came from 5 mountains. مِنْ تُورِ سِينَا, from the Mount of Sinai. وَتُورِ زَيْتَ وَاللُّبْنَانِ. These are 2 mountains in Syria. Zayta is in Jerusalem, and Lubnan is in Syria also. وَالْجُودِ, meaning that mount where Noah's Ark landed. وَالْحِرَاء, and the mountain of Hira. So what the story relates from Al-Azraqi, that the angels brought these rocks one at a time. And as you can see in the picture, what I've tried to show is that there was no cement, there was no plaster, all it was one rock on top of the other. So these rocks were brought. Now the qawa'id that's referred to in here, the foundations, had been placed there by Jibreel previously, and they were from the Mount of Hira. Now Hira is significant because this is where the revelation is going to come to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it said, إِذْ يَرْفَعْ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ. Ibrahim builds these stones from the mounts, the rocks that were there from the Mount of Hira, which is in the area of Mecca, and this is symbolic, and it's full of symbolism, because as we say, the stone is then placed and Ibrahim puts his footstep on there. What's significant about the foot? Why is the foot so important? Al-maqam, maqam Ibrahim, the word maqam comes from qama, to stand. Stand, what did I say we do? Allah, Bismillah, Allah, we stand in qiyam, turning to the Kaaba. Why? Following the footsteps of Sayyidina Ibrahim. And where will this take us? To Yawm al-Qiyamah, to the day of standing. So this process is all part of this story of Sayyidina Ibrahim and the maqam of Ibrahim, the footstep or the footprint of Ibrahim. وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Take the maqam of Ibrahim as your musalla. What did I say muthaba meant? Is your place of refuge, the place that you find that you continually return to. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make that place the place of refuge that we always turn back to, and that we finish with this dua, which is how the section finishes. رَبَّنَا وَاجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا. And teach us these rights. Because if you don't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, show me and my children how to follow this footpath of Sayyidina Ibrahim, of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu, which will take us to the truth. If you don't show it us, where are we going to get it from? وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا. And turn to us. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Because you are the one that is most able to turn and the most merciful. رَبَّنَا, he continued, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا. And send amongst them a prophet. مِنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. And he will recite to them your words. And this is the Quran that inshallah we will be so closely connected to next week. وَيُؤَلِّهِمُ الْكِتَابِ. And they will teach us this, and he will teach them the book, وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and wisdom, meaning the correct way to do this. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. And as a result of this, will he will purify us. إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. فجزاكم الله خيرا والعفو منكم. Inshallah, hopefully we'll continue at some point in some other fashion. Perhaps in Ramadan we'll get another opportunity to do some other kind of lessons. But for now, that will be the break. And inshallah, may Allah accept our good intentions and count us among His righteous and obedient servants. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima. You just want to close?